Hi there.
Peter Gabriel, Google, Peter Gabriel. So this is another Talks at Google event from Mountain View, and we're very, very pleased to welcome musician, artist, and activist Peter Gabriel here today. We are going to have a great chance to ask some questions about the current tour and the 25th anniversary of So, which is going to be released actually at the end of October, on October 22nd. And we'll also have some chance for the audience to ask some questions as well. So why don't we get started? You're here on tour, you're kind of in the middle of the tour, and what was the story behind the tour? How did it come to be?
Well, there were a number of things. I mean, I've never really done a retro tour before, and was pretty resistant. You know, I know Robert Plant quite well, and we were sort of chiding each other on who's going to succumb to the big money first. And anyway, I went to see the Beach Boys do Pet Sounds, which I always used to love, and that convinced me that to see one of the records that you enjoy from start to finish was actually a good thing. And that coincided with some nice offers, so that was an easy decision. And it was, I'm actually going to take a sabbatical year this year with my family. We've got a teacher coming out with us, and so it helps underwrite that sabbatical year as well. So there were a number of reasons, but I decided to bring back the band that originally toured that record, and so that's been fun, and we're actually having a great time. We do the evening in three parts. So the first part is based on the idea that the process is often as interesting, if not more interesting, than the final product. So we start off with an unfinished song, and then we do sort of rehearsal mode with the house lights on. That's the starter. Then the main course is a few songs, more electronic or electric versions of things, and then the last chunk, you know, if you can get through all that, you get your dessert, which is the So album. So that's how it works.
And specifically about the So album, so you're playing, the actual tour is called Back to Front, and it seems to be some of the format you just discussed, but the playing So, the track order that you have now, that wasn't the original track order, correct?
Well, this is an interesting diversion about technology, because although I'm a big fan of vinyl, I was also a great fan of the digital world, because suddenly we could get more dynamics in the music, and there were restrictions in the vinyl world. For example, the track In Your Eyes, I always wanted to go at the end of the record, but it has a good bass line there. To get a fat bass line on a full vinyl record, you can't put it near the end. You have to have it nearer the beginning, so it went on the start of side 2, just because there wasn't enough room for the needle to vibrate as it got close to the center. So then, when CDs came along, I was able to take that track and put it back on the end where it always should have been.
And on this release that's coming up, it's not just, there's a couple of variations, as I understand. There's the CD itself, so you're re-releasing, you've remastered that, and that's the third time you've remastered that. Yeah,
as long as people keep buying it, we'll remaster it.
And then there's actually going to be a comprehensive box set that's got both CDs, some material that hasn't been released yet, and also a DVD with some concert footage. Yeah. And have you been just sitting on this? This has been in the stores, in the library?
We throw any old shit in there, you know.
Hey, it was old, get it in.
No, but there were a couple of things that, we were waiting for the right day, and the right day, you know, you always get more interested in the latest things, so we'd sort of forgotten about. But also, we shot the filmed the show 26 years ago, and Scorsese had been producing, and he'd got this wonderful cinematographer doing it, and we hadn't realized quite what we had, so we went back to the film. So, I mean, tons of film cans that had to be carefully resurrected, and then we took all the data of the film and have a much better resolution version of that concert than we had done previously.
And the actual production of So, and then also some of the videos and the documenting that, over what time period did that actually happen, from kind of when you thought about the album, conceived it originally, to actually getting it out the door?
Sorry, this latest thing or the original?
The original one.
I think that just sort of happened as things came up. There wasn't really a brilliant master plan. It was, when we finish this, then what else do we need to do? And we try and film things. I mean, again, if you have the opportunity to have 2 gigs in the same place, then it makes filming a lot easier, because you can do the setup. And all the mistakes you make on the first day, you can try and sort out on the second day. But and we did that in Greece as well.
So when you're approaching songwriting, or maybe at the time when you were approaching songwriting with regards to So, did you have a list of songs and then say, okay, right, I'm going to select these musicians to start working with, or were you writing and recording at the same time?
I'm always writing lyrics until the day it's released, really. But I'm slow with those. But there was a few ideas. In fact, I'd forgotten this, but Manu and Tony said that Sledgehammer was an afterthought. There was a taxi waiting to take Manu back to Paris, and we had an hour left. And I think I said, I've got this new idea that maybe we could just put a demo down on, and that was it. I mean, we carried on working on it because it felt great, but it was quite an afterthought.
And then Sledgehammer also took on a life of its own when it came to the video, which you worked with Aardman on and others. My son first, straight away, he's like, the chickens, that looks just like Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? Well,
actually, it was, the man who did the chickens was the man who created Wallace and Gromit. I was working with this brilliant director, Stephen R. Johnson, and he brought in the Quay brothers, who are fantastic, sort of dark East European looking animation. And I saw they've now got a big thing at MoMA in New York. And I brought in Aardman Animation, who were from down the road in Bristol. Stephen and I had a couple of weeks just bashing through ideas, and then we brought in the others. And it was a really exciting, creative brainstorming. And that's always been one of the things I most enjoy about what I do, is working with people from different backgrounds, often smarter than I am, and just cooking something up. So it was a great experience, but quite painful too, because we did everything the old-fashioned way, frame by frame. So when you see a sky moving across my face, that is being painted frame by frame, and the skin gets very raw. And when you're under glass with a lot of raw fish, on day 1 it's fine, but day 2, it's at least you put the blame on the fish.
And that video, I think, is actually the most played video ever on MTV. I mean, granted, they don't play quite as many videos these days, but still, the fact
do they play any?
That's a huge, accomplishment. And I think that it also, having been relatively young at that age, it was so different than anything that was out there, and it really kind of set a standard for also an immersive, or just an experience that was getting you into the mind of the writer and the artist in a different way. I think of seeing kind of an entertainment value that wasn't just for the sake of entertainment, but also telling a story.
Yeah, I think what was great about videos then is that there were people that wanted to watch them, and there was a budget, and there were no rules, so you could do what the hell you wanted, and there was no one there to say, no, this is the way we do it.
And when you approach kind of back to songwriting, I want to just ask, I know that I think Mike Rutherford maybe made the comment once that you're a frustrated drummer, or over time, and you started as a drummer in school. Do you think you think more rhythmically originally about a song, or do you think more melodically?
I think both. There are some things which are just based on melody, but groove is what drove me into music. I thought drummers, they seemed to be in command of this really loud thing. and it looks like a lot of fun, and that's what I wanted to be. I was very enthusiastic, not very good, but and it was fine in the early days of Genesis because we had guys who weren't, they were good, solid drummers, but they weren't that creative. And then when we got Phil, unfortunately, he was a way better drummer than I was. But I used to still have some bits of my drum kit on stage, and I would find my bass drum full of carpet. And, you know, and gradually, you know, these things were getting reduced. So there was a subtle way of saying that maybe I wasn't the best timekeeper. However, I worked also, I mean, you know, being a major drum fan, I've worked with some of the best drummers in the world, I think. And one of those is Stuart Copeland, who is also a lousy timekeeper. And but he's...
Just don't tell that to Stuart Copeland.
No, I've told him. He'll say it himself, because he races. But the energy he puts into his drumming and the attack on it is fantastic, and he does that brilliantly.
And on the album, he played hi-hat on...
Well, this is the thing. I had so many wonderful drummers I could, you know, cut up bits and pieces and, yeah, get a bit of a hi-hat from Stuart, a kick from Manu, and, I mean, whatever it was just... but I'm a bit obsessive, as you might guess from this, that, you know, the groove has to be right. And I think, you know, we work quite hard trying to find grooves that aren't the regular ones you're hearing on the radio.
And I think with having this band back on stage together, is there some kind of moments where you look around and it's deja vu?
Yeah. You know, and we all look exactly the same as we did 25 years ago. But, well, actually, a couple of the guys do. I wish I could say that. But it's a bit like family get-togethers, because, you know, you end up with the same bunch of folk doing exactly the same things you always did, with all the pleasures and problems that went along the first time. So it feels very familiar, but I'm enjoying it a lot.
And as far as the way in which the songs evolve when you're on tour, do you try out kind of, there's that section that's defined as, let's play with these more, but do you also come back and rearrange the songs a little bit by the end? Are they the same songs that you start out at the beginning of the tour when you wind up at the end?
Well, we try and get them right, you know, that's, so we are, I mean, we're tweaking, you know, every sound check, we're trying to find a few of the weaknesses and nail them. And we never used to play all the tracks together, partly because, you know, two of them were a bitch to get right, and we couldn't get them working. So I think we're closing in on them anyway. But yeah, you do want to keep changing it. However, I keep forgetting, because we did start off rehearsing some other stuff as well. But now it's once we've got things beginning to feel like a real show and working properly, then when you do change the numbers over, then it means also you've got to reprogram the lights and all that stuff. So I think we will be doing that, getting some flexibility, but gently.
And in a tour like this, I know that you've always put a lot of energy and time to make a concert just a full experience, not just, okay, you know, here's some nice lights and here are the songs, and hopefully played the best they can be, but also the experience of the songs in a way. How much time does it go into actually prepping for a tour like this?
Well, there's a fair bit. I mean, I've got some very smart people, and in fact, there was an idea originally 26 years ago when I was just doing videos and I saw the cameras on these booms that were being manually operated, and I thought the way they moved was really cool. So we replaced the cameras with lights, and now we've got lights with little cameras on them as well, but they're still manually operated. And I'm working on another show after this, which will be more robotic, I think, but this one I'm really enjoying the sort of manual element, which is, I think, it feels quite futuristic and retro simultaneously.
And speaking of robots, you've always been, I guess what in Silicon Valley speak would be an early adopter of technology and release of CD-ROMs and even using, back to drums, the first kind of gated or largely used gated drum sounds and things like that. If you just always had a fascination with technology, or how do you kind of use it to stimulate creativity?
Well, my dad was an inventor, electrical engineer, and designed with an Italian a system. It was a TV system called Dial-A Program, but it was, in a way, it was home shopping, electronic democracy, entertainment on demand, but it was 1971 and accessed through the rotary dial of a telephone. I think, then tried to sell it, and it was a little too early. But I saw him passionate about what technology could do for people, and so I think that although I don't have his skills, I have his enthusiasm. So I still love to get involved with all sorts of techie things.
And I think I'll open up for questions in a sec if people want to line up. But around selecting musicians, because you have worked with so many, what's the process whereby you kind of discover or like to collaborate? Because it's spoiled for choice. You could kind of bring in all these different folks as you develop new music or go back to visit old ones. It's probably tough to select.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think I like to have a core of family around me because there's a shorthand. It's just more efficient. And if you want to get ideas and people know what it is you like and what works and what doesn't work, I think it's speed. I think the great giants of the creative process that are hardly ever acknowledged, which I'm sure applies in your world, are boredom and fatigue. And they hover over everything. And as soon as you get tired or bored, the thing is dead. So it's trying to keep things sparkly and crackling long enough to support life on their own. And that's, I think, best achieved in my case with some home team and some new, exciting, inspiring guests.
So as far as keeping or becoming more efficient and creative, do you think you've managed that over time? I'm not sure. I'm still terrible getting lyrics finished. I feel I can come up with some musical ideas I'm happy with fairly quickly, but lyrics, I have to go off, isolate myself from my family, and I have a theory, which probably a lot of smart people here, someone could tell me if there's any substance in it, but peripheral visual stimulation. In other words, if I get on a train, and I know a lot of other creative folk who get a lot more ideas on a train than they do sitting at a desk. And I think that when you're in a train or in a car, you've got stuff coming past you. And in the old days when we were either chasing or being chased, and there were a lot of important things dependent on it, like whether we survived to tomorrow, the body had some mechanism for accelerating and pumping adrenaline around when you get this peripheral visual acceleration or speed. So that's what I do when I get stuck. I get on a train. And I've suggested that to quite a few other folk who've had some success with it. So anyway, that's my offering for today. And we do have a sponsorship from a train company. And Caltrain's about to get a lot busier.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to see your tour in 1986 when you did this album the first time. Greatest tour of my ever life.
Oh, thank you.
Show of my life I've ever seen. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. And I was really excited when you mentioned the lights on the jib arm.
Yeah.
That's like a visual memory that stuck with me since then.
Great. Well, we don't have, we have one or two overhead lights, but the normal sort of proscenium arch and so on, we've thrown away.
So I wanted to ask a couple of quick questions about other things you might have considered bringing back.
Yeah.
To use again. The first, and I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but when I saw you, you had the opening act was Houston Adore.
Oh, right.
Sang on In Your Eyes, and he, of course, came out and sang with you. Were you able to get him to come out and tour with you this time?
Sadly, they actually created a new law in Senegal to stop him becoming president, and he's now Minister of Culture because he's like god out there, and but so he's not really doing much music at the moment. Besides which, he's a great and celebrated artist in his own right now. So the idea of back up on my tour, I'm sure. but he's godfather to my son, and I am to one of his. So we're still very good friends. But he's an amazing artist.
Yeah. And the other is a little bit more on the technology side.
Yeah.
Recreating the sounds.
Yeah.
Like, for example, did you have to dig out your old Fairlight, and did the floppy disks still work? Or, I mean, how do you do that to recreate all those old sounds?
I think actually archiving, your history is your future. Because we were talking to some of the Pixar folk, and they were saying that they couldn't play back some of the files from the original Toy Story. And it's a real issue, I think, that there's some consciousness of how we can hold stuff. And I think they're taking digital stuff and putting it on film. So it's all back to front. And I mean, maybe some people here have solved this, but I think it's an issue that needs careful thought. We did take some of the sounds, but some of the floppies weren't working, and we had trouble looking for DAT players, there are one or two people who've been smart enough to try and hold on to bits of historical technology and try and keep it working, so that desperate people like myself can be rescued.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Gabriel. I'm a lifelong fan, and I hope you never stop making music, and I hope
Thank
you
you.
always sing Wallflower in every concert you do.
Thank you.
And,
I'm not playing it tonight, but
had to try. My question is a little bit weird. In Salisbury Hill, the last verse is very, you saying you're going to go home, and that kind of closes the story nicely and wraps up the song.
sorry, which
Salisbury Hill.
Salisbury, right? Yeah.
And so I'm curious why when you sing it live oftentimes I've heard you sing it, and the last verse, you tend to sing the original first part of the verse. I'm just so nervous, I'm going to forget it.
Okay,
But I'm just wondering if it's...
is this I screw up the lyrics? Because
Exactly. Why do you screw up the last verse of Salisbury Hill?
Okay. It's
there's-
because I screw up lyrics on a regular basis, and I used to just read the lips of the front row, which was fine when they learned the English version, and now of course we have prompting screens, which are for those senior moments.
Okay, well, that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Of course, you got to be able to read them. But
Hi, Peter. I'm a huge Lifetime fan.
Great.
All throughout my college days, I had a huge poster of you on my wall.
we were just good friends, right?
So it's nice to see you live. I also attended the '86 concert, and it was the best concert of my life also.
Oh,
And I remember you walking in that circular wheel. And
the hamster cage. Yeah.
just wondering if there's going to be any more things like that at today's concert.
It's pretty simple, and it's just really these old lights on the booms. This one was more about the music and less about the production. The next one I'm planning is the other way around, but right now that's the focus.
And the other question I had was, a while back, Salman Ahmed from Junoon, he was here at Google, and he mentioned that you were going to be doing a recording together and doing maybe some concerts. Is that in the plans?
He sent me some stuff which I'm still hoping that we can work on with some Kowali things, because he was doing a fantastic job singing with some of the Kowali stuff, and so I'm still hoping something will happen with that. We're with our record company, because of the sort of collapse of the record business. We have to get a sign-in from various partners before we can proceed, and we haven't had that as yet. But I'm still hoping we may be able to get something going there. He's an interesting musician,
And the last question I have is, will you be doing any more world music concerts and putting on.
Yeah, we have a World Music Festival, WOMAD, and that has just had its 30th anniversary. And we had, it's done well we've had in 80 countries now, and we'd like to try bring it back over here. We were in, I think 92 Golden Gate Parkway, and then we had a sort of future zone area, which was a techie thing, because I'm still in love with the idea of sort of science and technology and handmade and traditional culture. And I hope we'll be able to reintroduce that part of it into the WOMAD Festival, but it's still something that we're trying to evolve.
And just wanted to let you know that one of my favorite songs from you that puts shudders through me is that song called Biko.
All right, yeah. Well, we'll be finishing tonight with it. Yeah.
Mr. Gabriel, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much.
So we wondered, today that cell phones and cameras are everywhere.
Yeah.
We wondered if there has been any follow-up on the Witness project.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've had some help from Google.org and also with the YouTube folk on getting a human rights channel. Because before the problem was, we tried to do our own sort of human rights destination thing called the Hub, and the problem was that it was doing its job well, which was basically to provide more security, anonymity, and context around any bit of video. But we didn't have the eyeballs. And so YouTube clearly has lots of eyeballs. So along with Storyful, we're now working on that. And I think we're just beginning to see the transformation that the mobile phone is going to have in our world, and it's absolutely huge. I'm really excited that anything. You see what's happening in the Middle East or any area of protest, that the young people protesting don't feel isolated in a way that they did before. National sovereignty, borders were very effective in the past in whenever those in power wanted to shut down protest, and it doesn't work in the same way. Clearly technology can be used for good or for bad, and it's a cat and mouse game, and at the same time in providing for activism, for healthcare, for education, and I got suckered into a thing. We have this Elders Project, which is former statesmen. In fact, I just lay out the pitch, because the way I see it, if you have anything bad going on in the world, and then you can map it in the way that Ushahidi has done, for instance, that it will never be forgotten. And then you can go and sort of zoom into that and hear personal stories in the voices of those affected, so it's not being interpreted by the outside, but they're telling their own stories. And that's where YouTube Witness and various others, Global Voices, all come in. Then you have sort of campaign building, and Avars, I think, are probably the most effective at that. If they're 15 million now, they could be 150 million, or numbers that politicians can no longer ignore. And then the Elders, where you can have high-level interventions, so you go straight to Parliament or presidents or whoever it is, but connected to what's happening on the ground. Then you start to see this whole other infrastructure forming that is based around the mobile phone, that I really think can transform the world. And just from the healthcare side, we're seeing some of these, like the Tricorder Prize, where I think 20 parameters. The tricorder, for those who didn't watch Star Trek, was the device that you could wave over someone. It would give you everything that was good and bad about what was going on in their body. And we are going to be completely unable to provide high-tech healthcare for the world except through the mobile. And there are all these wonderful things coming along. Whereas a scanner, I think the Tricorder Prize is going to go, within the next 18 months, 2 years, and that can read these parameters better. I mean, we have things that, already. I saw this scanner that went into the blood, looked at the carotenoids, gave you a reading, so it could tell you, 2 donuts in, 3 days of healthy eating, and you're back up to your level. But suddenly you then got competitive feedback and group sort of psychology on keeping us well. And anyway, I go on for a long time on this stuff because I'm so excited by it. And I know all of you guys are working on these things, and I think it's completely up to us whether it's used positively or negatively. While I'm on one, data, I think, is going to be a huge area, and I know this is potentially contentious, but I think we have or should have legal right to own or co-own any data that we generate in a digital world, and that's something that I hope the elders will be campaigning for, along with a lot of other people, because clearly that has real commercial value. But when we are allowed to touch and own or co-own that, I think there will be a sort of self-regulating mechanism which is fundamental to the evolution of a digital world.
And the elders, just for context, is a group of senior leaders and luminaries: Jimmy Carter, Desmond Tutu,
Kofi Annan, Mary Robinson, Ella Butt. I mean, they're extraordinary people. And it was the idea of just trying to get a group of, it's 10 of them at the moment, but the idea should be 12. We got Mandela to found it originally, and they can make interventions. But I think our dream is, or my dream, I think some of the elders' dream too, is that when that then can be connected to these movements that grow up from the ground, that can give voice to the voiceless, etc., that it can be part of a new mechanism for balancing.
Thank you. And I have a...
Sorry, yeah, you didn't expect all that shit.
And I have a message from a very good dear friend of mine who actually introduced me to your music, that he misses the transparent bows and feathers.
And feathers. I don't remember the feathers. But the transparent bulls, well, I won't take my trousers off now.
Hello, Mr. Gabriel.
Hi.
This is the coolest thing ever, incidentally.
Oh,
talking to you
thank you.
like this.
Thank you.
Me and my friends went to your 86 concert. We're all going again tonight.
Great.
It'll be a lot of fun. You talked earlier about revisiting old stuff. Any chance we'll hear from Rael again?
Well, there was an illustrator I met in Chicago who's sort of working on some, and one or two people ask about film stuff, and I think if some serious steam got underway with Lamb as a film project, then I think that might sort of regurgitate some of the rest of it.
Because you have to know that was totally groundbreaking. It's one of my favorite pieces of music of all time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm a big fan of
Great, thank you.
and particularly going back to Genesis, Selling England by the Pound, one of my favorite albums of all time. My question, many, many years ago, I guess maybe around the time of I had a friend who was writing music, and he was a big fan of yours as well, and he was all, "Oh, Peter Gabriel's playing in town. I think I'm going to go to the concert, see if I can catch him afterwards and shoot him a tape, and maybe he'll hear it and really like it. Maybe we'll work together." And and I'm all, yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I.
We'll take the tape right now.
I wondered if, I wondered if, did you get the tape? And if so, what did you think of it?
Well,
seriously though, I mean, you.
No, the entire So album was actually a rip-off of that tape.
But it's always made me very curious. You must get inundated with this kind of stuff, and I'm curious how much you get, what you do with it, how you deal with it, and if anything interesting has ever come out of these kind of things.
Yeah, we still do get a lot of stuff. I used to worry a lot about it, and I'm afraid I don't so much now. And there's a lot more than we could ever listen to. So it tends, we've got our record company too, so they do some listening, and we have, I think Hokwe Zawosi who's sadly passed, but he's amazing singer. I think that fell through the letterbox at one point. So some things have just come in out of the blue, but it's more often through personal contact.
And I have to confess, Jerry Murata, who
Yeah.
played on drums as well, I met once. I used to play in a band. I was kind of a drummer, more of a controlled flailist, but actually gave him a tape.
Oh, you did?
So I'd also like to have some credit.
Right, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi. Unfortunately, I wasn't alive for the '86 show, but I'm.
I was going to say.
We won't hold that against you.
I was going to say that makes two of us.
Anyways, I really enjoy Real World Records and
Great.
the mix contests you did, and your studio is obviously amazing. I'm just curious what advice you'd give to young producers and mixing engineers who are trying to make it in today's world, where it seems like credits aren't really a thing in a digital world. Like you download an MP3 and you can't look at a liner note, right? So
Right.
How do you feel about that? And are you behind like the Grammy petition that's currently going on to get these music services to include liner notes, etc.?
I didn't actually know about it, but I think I would be, because I think people work their asses off sometimes, and there should be a way that you can, drill down and find out everything about anything. So I would support that.
Cool, thanks.
Peter, thanks for coming to Google.
You're welcome.
I have a question. You discovered a lot of raw talent, music talent, like Nusrat from subcontinent. I wanted to know how you got to discover all this thing, and are you doing any other projects with any of the subcontinent singers or musicians?
Well, I would never call Nusrat raw. He was a master, certainly when we met him. And for those of you who don't know him, he's like a sort of Pavarotti from Pakistan, but in Qawwali. And it was actually Pete Townsend from The Who that told me about Qawwali. I didn't really know much about it. When we were in 1980 trying to put WOMAD, this World Music Festival, together, he said you should check that out. And the first group we had in was a group called Sabri Brothers, and they were great, but they introduced us to others, and Nusrat was, the most revered, and we put him with Massive Attack. There's one little byline here, but we had a thing where we deliberately excluded the artist's own country or geographical region from our record contract, because very often artists would survive selling their records, with their own cassette tapes. When Massive Attack did Must Must with Nusrat, I think it was the biggest single in India or the subcontinent, and of course we didn't benefit from that at all, which did make us think, scratch our heads. But he was such an amazing artist to work with. I think, probably the finest singer I've ever worked with, in that he not only had this passionate voice, but he could improvise it was like composition on the spot, in an extraordinary, powerful way. So yeah, we still, with WOMAD, we have a lot of artists from the subcontinent, and I think we'll still continue doing that. I'm not sure what there is right now.
I think we've got time for one more question.
I'm happy to do two, as I've got two.
I guess my anecdote of super fanhood is my LPs in my bag here that I retain, two of which are both your works. Every other one I've gotten rid of, and I've had them since I was a kid. I was at your '86 show, and I'm here to express my gratitude for your grace and humanity with how you've used your celebrity status over the years, and for the decades of positive kind of introspection that your poetry has helped me with. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
It seems like after that question, we should probably just close it. But since I'm here and you've been so gracious, I was wondering if you could talk about In Your Eyes and what the song means in writing. It's one of my favorite songs, but I'd like to hear more about it.
Very well. I guess it was a love song, but what I was interested in too was I had a place in Senegal for a while, and I was fascinated that in Africa you could have love songs that were could be interpreted two ways. So it could be human, physical love, or it could be spiritual love for God. And you know, in my world, the church thing and the physical, romantic thing were miles apart. So that was a starting point for trying to sort of integrate some of the lyrical ideas. And then I think it was immortalized when John Cusack held up the boombox, which was later, I think, repeated with Shock the Monkey playing on. No, I'm going to South Park. Thank you. See, so if I can travel as a group, then we can share bits of my memory.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
But yeah, so no, and I was going to talk about Yusu too, because I think, you know, he's this sort of divine intervention at the end, because his voice is just straight out of heaven.
So really, then it's about both. It's about love of a person and of God. Or
I think it's just outpouring of love.
Neat. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for coming.
Sure, thank you.
And I guess the final question is, you're going to be taking, at the end of the concert tour, a year, and then do you have anything that you can reveal as far as plans beyond that, or what's next?
Well, there's quite a lot of stuff sort of in the writing can, and there are a few projects that I think I'll get back to work in September. So I guess we'll know more then. We're trying to get there's a thing called Gabble, which is sort of like a visual. We're trying to do a visual language for the net, where it turns words into pictures, and we're just starting with that, and I'm sure I'll be hustling for help later on. So don't worry.
A wonderful show tonight. Have a great rest of the tour and a great sabbatical. And thanks so much for coming by Google.
Thanks. Great.